Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And now we're going to talk about rendering. This is movie number 10 of our mini training program. And now remember, if you want to see some other movies about Maya, I mean animation, modeling, because we are in movie number 10, like I said, you can actually go to our YouTube channel and check the other ones. So obviously, this is all this training is about the basics of all the main features. So in this case, we are going to talk about the main features of rendering. What actually is the process of rendering, how we can generate our render, our images, and some of the parameters, some of the important parameters that we can tweak in order to get not better results, but what I want you to understand is how you can manipulate the engine, and then from there you can start building your knowledge about rendering, and then obviously your images can get better as you move on. So the first thing is that we need our render window, and the render window is the one that we can call with this slate film. Now the render window is not actually the render. Now in order to get the render, you have to press this other slate film, or you can do it inside the render view. So I can click here, and the process of rendering is actually just the process of taking all the data that is inside our scene. In this scene, in this case, our objects, our lights, our textures, the position of these objects, shadows, etc., etc. All that information is being translated into this digital image, or rasterized image. So now we have pixels, we have that information translated into this object. And one thing to keep in mind is that this is something that comes from another, well, right now it's coming from Maya software, but it could came from another piece of software like Mental Ray, like I mean, there's a lot, RenderMan, V-Ray, etc., etc. So right now we are going to be talking about the Maya software, and probably if we have time, we're going to talk a little bit about Mental Ray. But for now, let's focus on this. So right now we are using Maya software, and that's what we are getting. Now I'm going to save this image so that we can have different versions. And one thing to keep in mind is that the render time in this image, as you can see, we have the number 8 right here. Now another thing is that all the options for rendering are not in this render view. This render view is only the purpose of this panel is just to show me the image, and then I can change some of the basic stuff here. For I can see the alpha, I can see change the size of this object, I can save this image temporarily, things like that. But actually I am not getting a lot of options for rendering here. The only ones, or the more important one I will say, is just the action or the opportunity to change from one software or from one render engine to another. And let me just change and call my parameters, my render parameters, and that's by clicking on this slate film where we have two different points. So I'm going to click here, and that's going to call this render settings window. And right now you can see that I have a master layer option here, and that means that I have only one layer, okay? And that's the layer that I'm going to use for rendering. We can have more layers, but like I told you, this movie is going into the core of rendering. We don't care about layers right now. We want to render. And remember, if after all this training you really want to know more about Maya, we will be waiting for you in cardanfx.com. So we have all the training that you need. But for now, let's focus on this. So render using Maya software, right? Well, this is the one that is gonna let me select the render engine that I want to use. In this case will be the same thing that I have here. Okay, now the next option is called common, and here I'm going to specify the path where I want to render my object, my final image. In this case you can see that I am rendering this in my hard drive, and I have a documents folder, Maya projects, default images, and then I have the file name, which is called Illuminación, or illumination in English without the other L. But and I can see the extension of this image. Now why we have this name? Well, the name is coming from the name of this file. I call this file Illuminación, which means illumination, and I have that and because automatically Maya is taking the name of the file, it's placing that in the file name prefix. As you can see, it says file name prefix, and it says not set using scene name, which means Iluminación is the name that we are using. Now I can click here and I can specify a different name. My first image, for example. I can change the name of this file, and now the name is going to be my first image. You can see that right here, and the extension is .iff because that's the type of file that we're using, which is Maya IFF. But now I can change that to probably JPG like this, and now I have this another setting. Okay, we have our GIF file. If we want to, we can actually have PSD files layered, and like I told you, right now we have only one layer, but I mean we have a lot of flexibility. So in this area we're going to select the name, the file name prefix. Now we can enable color management, but if you don't know about color management, I suggest you to leave that as it is, because things can get a little bit more complex, and I really don't want to talk about this the color spaces right now. So just make sure you have that like this. Then we will go to image format. We change the image that you want. Obviously now you can see that we have Targa, a lot of different options. I'm gonna keep that into probably Maya. Where is my Maya if? Okay, then we have the how we want the format of the name convention. And for example, here you can see frame animation extension. We have the name that extension for a single frame, which means we are going to have one frame. We are going to render only one frame, and it's going to have the name, in this case my first image, and then the extension, point extension. Now I can come here and change that, and I said, you know what, I want to have the name, then the number, and then the extension, and that's what we have here. It's now, as you can see here on top, it says my first image 1.iff, and then it's gonna go from there, file name, to my first image dash under line 10.iff, which means that we are going to render 10 frames. Why 10 frames? Well, we are going to be rendering 10 frames because if we go down here, we have something called the frame range. And here I can specify how many frames I want to render and how many times I want to jump between one frame and another. So right now I'm rendering 10 frames, and I'm starting at frame 1 and I'm going to end at frame 10. Now actually in this animation, as you remember, we have 48 frames. Okay, let me click here and play, and you can see we have 48 frames. Actually the animation here ends at probably frame 43, okay, 42, and then it starts at frame number 1. Now I can change that if I want and make everything fit into this area. I have this little guide, the film gate, and also the resolution gate, which allows me to see exactly what I'm gonna get in my render. All right, so you can see 640 by 48, 640 by 480, and that's the size that I'm getting, the resolution that I'm using. You can see size here, 640 by 480, and that way I can see exactly what I'm gonna get. So I can position, I can take the position of my objects or my camera, and then I can make a test, you know, in order to see what I'm gonna get. And now that I know that this is gonna be the type of object that I want, or the camera, now I can come back and try to change my render, and I'm gonna get that result. Okay, the same thing that I'm looking right now here is gonna appear in this other area. Now so that's how I can move the camera. Now let's keep talking about this. So we have now from frame 1 to probably frame 42. That's what we want. So I want to change frame 1 to frame 42. Okay, now changing this right now is not gonna make this render go from frame 1 to frame 42. It's just that I'm specifying that I want that amount of frames, and when I call my batch render, that's what is going to happen. Okay, now the other option that I have here is called by frame, and by frame means that I'm going to go from frame 1 to frame number 2, then number 3, number 4, 5, 6, just like that. It's by frame 1. If I change that from 1 to 2, I will go 1, then 3, then 5, and so on. So you can actually change how many frames you want to jump, and that's just because sometimes you're looking at you want to have some kind of reference of what are you doing, and that way you can change this other option. Now you can actually renumber your frames in this case. So for example, let's say that we're going to start frame, well, I can start in frame number 10, and I can end up in frame 30. All right, but I can rename this, and so that the frame number 1 is going to be, or frame number 10 is going to be my first image number 1, and number 30 is going to be frame number 21, as you can see, because this is the number, the start numbering that I'm using. If I remove this, I get again the what you will expect, 10 and 30. So this is just in case that you want to match, probably you have the number of frames in real footage, you want to match the CG with real footage. That's something that you can use in order to get that the number, the exact number that you want. Now we have something here called the renderable camera, so where you can actually specify what camera you want to use for your renders. In this case, I am using only one render camera. I can go here to panels, and you can see I have perspective, and it's the same name that I have here, persp. Now I can click on new, and that will create a new camera, and now I can come here and move this camera, which is actually a complete different camera. I can actually activate this my frame options here, so that I can see what am I going to be rendering, and I can play this, and this is giving me a complete different perspective, right? So now one thing that I want to do is change it a little bit more, because I don't want to see how that object is kind of stopping, and something like that. Okay, that's another camera. So actually now I can come here and change the name of this camera. Instead of having it like persp1, I can call it new, okay, with capitals, so I know that this is my new camera. So now if I come here, I will have access to I should have access to my other camera. Now let me close this, because probably it's not I need to refresh that, but you can see here I have my new camera right here, and if I go here to panels, you can see that I have a new camera. And obviously if you go here, you can change to perspective, which is the other one, and this one is from the other side. And now let's call again our parameters. See here, render settings, and so we have renderable cameras, we have perspective, and now I have new. I have access to my new camera, so I can say I want to render with the new camera. And here's asking us if we want to render an alpha channel. If you don't know about the alpha channel, all I want to say is that it's about transparency. For example, right now here I don't have anything, I don't have any object in here, so all this area is going to be empty, and I can take, for example, this image and place it on top of a background that probably has like clouds or something, and I'm going to place this, I can place it, and I'm going to reveal the clouds that are going to be behind in another package like Photoshop, for example. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to leave that with as an alpha channel. Then the next option that I have is the preset, the size of the image. Right now we are rendering everything based on 640 by 480, which means that we are getting this standard size of our images. And I can change now this and come, for example, if I want to get HD, high definition, I can come here and change that from HD 720. And you can see that this is actually not changing right now, because we are sharing kind of the same pixel aspect ratio. But if I come here and change that to, I don't know, PAL, for example, it should be changing in here. I don't know why it's not changing my camera. PAL, pixel aspect ratio. Let me come here and change to perspective. No, well, it's not changing. but still you have here the option to come and change the size of your camera. It's sometimes probably it's because it needs to refresh. I'm gonna try one. Okay, I'm gonna click here and render. It's gonna take a while because now we're gonna be rendering something bigger, and you're gonna see that the area that we are going to be rendering is going to be a little bit more different. We're gonna have a wide screen, and also the time. I want you to check how long is the difference between the first render that we created and now this one is taking a longer than the other one, and it's only because this image is gonna be bigger and we're gonna have more resolution. Obviously, I can make it look, big like this, and still I'm retaining all that information. I don't have any pixels or pixelation going on, and you can see the size. So this is HD 1280 by 720, and we can save this. And now if I show you some other renders, well, actually I have only this one, but we can change that to, again, let's go with 640 by 480, and look at the time. This one took 27 seconds. Now we're gonna render this one more time, and this one is gonna take less time, and then it's gonna be a smaller image, right? So that's why when we are testing our images, we want to render the quicker the better. Now when we want to send our image for final output, we will make sure that our settings are the best and we have a big image. So but for now everything is going to be like that. Now resolution 72, that's a good number if we're going to use this for, in the digital world. If you want to take that for print, I suggest you to take this and change it to something like 300, for example, and that's inches per inch, or excuse me, pixels per inch, or points per inch, whatever you wanna, however you're gonna call that. And now what we have here is the device aspect ratio, where we can come and change that based on the device or based on the pixels. So right now we have everything based on pixels, which means that every pixel is going to be one by one. But if we want to change or simulate another kind of device, you can come here and specify that amount of distortion. Then we have our render options, and right now here I only have access to enable the default light, and this one you saw me before when I deactivate this one in order to show you that nothing happens. We can see all we see is black if we have this disabled. But now every time you create a new light inside Maya, you will get access to this option. Basically this light becomes obsolete, and we will be taking care of the lights that we have inside our scene. Okay, so this one is like, okay, I don't listen to you anymore. I will listen to the ones that I placed by hand inside my viewport. Now let's go to the other section, and here's where the magic is actually happening. Now the first thing to check is that right now I'm using the production quality setting, which means that I'm having a really nice finalized image. So that's why we have all these smooth transitions and things like that. And probably if you click already on your render, you are not seeing the same thing. So I'm just gonna click this button to save this image. Then I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna change that to preview quality, for example. Preview quality is gonna allow me to quickly have an idea of my render, and it's not gonna give me the same results that I have. Oh, let me just go here to frame number 8 because that's the one that we had, I believe. And then I'm gonna click on render. Okay, because I was clicking on play. So this is the new version with my preview, and this is with my best. Okay, can you see the difference on pixels? How all this is kind of I have a smoother image here, and the light, the shadows, everything looks nicer here. Okay, because of that. Now I'm only using one light, but remember, this is not about teaching you how to set up lighting or how to set up the render. I want you to know how to manipulate these panels. So now the next thing is that you can come here to shading, and if you increase this number, you can increase the quality of your render. So I can actually come and change that to production quality, and you can see how right away shading is going up to 2, and then I have another parameter called maximum shading, which is 8, which means that it's going to let me more samples. Imagine that I'm reviewing these points 8 times. The maximum amount of time that I can do that is 8 times, and the less amount of time that I can review that is 2. And obviously it's not like that, but I want you to have a brief idea. Now we have multi-pixel filtering, and I don't want to go into these details. You have the threshold of your colors where we can change the red, the green, and the blue. And we have the ray tracing quality, which is something that you have to keep in mind if you're going to be using reflections, refractions, or shadows. I show you that if you don't click on this one, you are not going to be able to get ray tracing shadows. You actually need to have this activated in order to get that. Now the reflections, refractions is something like the parameters I show you, that when you have the amounts of bounciness, so how many times you want the reflections, refractions, and shadows to bounce inside your scene. This parameter is actually pretty big, so I will suggest you to take this to probably 4, 6, things like that. And the bias is just a switch. Then we have our motion blur. You can activate motion blur if your objects are moving. You can actually get that, but one thing that I will do is probably come here and check, for example, 3D motion blur production, and then we have motion blur. You have 3D or 2D blur by frame 1, and I hope we don't get it doesn't take that long. And I mean, the motion blur allows to have sensation of movement. Now in this case I don't have that amount of a lot of blur, but you can see how it's kind of getting a little bit we have a little bit more of blurriness here. Now as you can see, we have a lot of different objects, and we don't have the time to discuss all this, but the basics of this is we already discussed all these options what we have here. Now before I go, I want to show you that we have different render versions, so you can actually come here and render with Maya. You can come and use Maya hardware. I'm gonna just save this one right here, and then I'm gonna click in Maya hardware, and I'm gonna click render, and now this is another engine taking care of the render. I'm gonna save this one, and then we have Maya hardware number 2, the new version, and I will do the same thing, render, and now this is another version. You can see 1, 2, 3 different versions. Then we can come and select, let me save this one and call the Maya vector, and this one is gonna give me just the silhouettes so that we can have this kind of looks nice. And last thing I want to do is show you that you can come here to window, and then in settings and preferences we can come to the plugin manager, and inside the plugin manager we can come and call another option which is called the Maya to mental ray. The Maya to mental ray, sorry, is right here, and in this version of 2013 they move it, so I'm just gonna click here and load it, and that is gonna load mental ray, and I'm gonna be able now to render with other parameters. So I'm just gonna close this object, this window, and now I'm gonna be able to have mental ray here, and I'm gonna save this one, and I'm gonna click right here, and there we go. It's another version. I'm sorry I forgot about that movement, but you can see how this texture now looks a lot different than this one. You have that version, the shading of this is with Maya software. Let me actually just save this one right here, and let's change that to Maya software, and let's do that one more time. There we go. So we have Maya version, we have blurriness and all that, and then we have mental ray. Okay, 2 different objects. As you can see, mental ray is taking care of our shadows. Everything looks nicer. The shapes and the smoothness of our polygons looks the way we have it here, and that's this is a pretty complex render engine, Maya mental ray. So as you can see, we have a lot more of options inside mental ray. So we have when we in our training we have probably, I don't know, 30 hours about just mental ray, which is a very deep topic. But for now I think you have an idea of how everything works inside Maya, And I mean, the main features, we talk about the interface, navigation in 3D space. We talk about modeling tools, NURBS, polygons, animation, rigging, textures, lighting. And now you have an example of how you can create your renders. And for now, I think that's it. Sorry about that. We don't have more time. And I will see you in another chapter. Bye bye for now. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, just click on the like button. Thank you very much. Bye bye for now.